The day has done all it needs to do. Now only stillness remains. Let your thoughts loosen, like threads unraveling in the dark. What comes next is not to solve or to chase, just a quiet story, drifting close. Perhaps it's a voice that remembers you, or a silence that has waited patiently. Let it meet you where you are, and let it lead you gently into rest. The wind carried a faint hum, like a song half forgotten, as it swept through the valley of Elderglow. The town was small, nestled between crooked hills where lanterns hung from ancient oaks, their flames flickering even in the fiercest storms. They never went out, or so the townsfolk said, because they were tied to promises made long ago, promises no one dared to break. Elderglow was a place where shadows moved with purpose, and whispers clung to the air like dew. Clara Hawthorne arrived on a late autumn evening, her boots crunching against the frost-kissed path. She was 27, with hair the color of burnt amber and eyes that held a quiet defiance. She'd come to Elderglow to escape a broken engagement, a city that felt too loud, and a heart that hadn't quite mended. The boarding house, run by a widow named Mrs. Tilling, was her new start. It was a creaky, ivy-covered building with windows that seemed to watch her as she approached. "You're the new tenant, then?" Mrs. Tilling's voice was soft but sharp, like a needle threading silk. She stood in the doorway, her gray hair pinned tightly, her apron dusted with flour. "City folk don't stay long here. Elderglow, it asks things of you." Clara offered a polite smile, brushing off the cryptic words. "I'm just looking for quiet. I won't be any trouble." The widow's eyes lingered, as if measuring her. "Quiet's what you'll get. But mind the lanterns. Don't touch them. Don't question them. They're not yours to meddle with." Clara nodded, though curiosity stirred in her chest. She followed Mrs. Tilling inside, her suitcase thumping against the wooden stairs. Her room was small but cozy, with a quilted bed, a single window overlooking the valley, and a faint scent of lavender. As she unpacked, the hum of the wind grew louder, almost like a voice calling her name. She shook her head, blaming fatigue, and settled into bed. That night, she dreamed of a man. He stood on a path lined with lanterns, his face half hidden by shadow. His coat was old-fashioned, tattered at the edges, and his eyes, gray as winter, seemed to see through her. "You're here," he said, his voice low and warm like embers crackling. "I've been waiting." She woke with a start, her heart racing, the dream vivid in her mind. The room was still, but the lanterns outside her window glowed brighter than before. The next morning, Clara wandered into town. Elderglow was quaint, with cobblestone streets and shops that smelled of fresh bread and candle wax. At the general store, she met Eliza, a young woman with a quick laugh and a braid that swung as she moved. "You're the city girl, huh?" Eliza said, handing Clara a basket of apples. "Folks are already talking. They say you've got a spark about you." Clara chuckled, unsure if it was a compliment. "Just passing through, I suppose. What's with the lanterns?" Mrs. Tilling made it sound like they're sacred. Eliza's smile faded slightly. "They're old, older than the town. They say each one holds a promise, someone's vow to stay, to wait, to return. Break a lantern, and you break the promise. Bad things happen after that." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Some say they're tied to the lost ones. People who never left Elderglow, not really. Clara felt a chill, the dream man's face flashing in her mind. She brushed it off and spent the day exploring, but the lanterns were everywhere, hanging from trees, lining paths, glowing even in daylight. By evening, she found herself at the edge of town, where a narrow trail wound into the hills. A single lantern hung from a gnarled branch, its flame dancing as if beckoning her. She stepped forward, drawn to it, when a voice called out, "I wouldn't if I were you." A man leaned against a nearby tree, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. He was tall, with a lazy drawl that carried a hint of amusement. "Those lanterns aren't for touching." Clara's pulse quickened. "I wasn't going to. Just looking." He tipped his hat, revealing gray eyes that caught the lantern's light. "Good. Name's Gideon. You're new, so I'll let it slide. But Elderglow's got rules. Stick to them, and you'll be fine." He turned and vanished into the dusk, leaving her alone with the lantern's glow. That night the dream returned. The man Gideon, she was sure, stood closer now, his hand outstretched. "You feel it, don't you?" he whispered. "The pull. It's why you came." Clara woke, her breath shallow, the lantern outside her window burning brighter than ever. The morning after her second dream, Clara woke to the scent of rain and the soft patter of drops against her window. The lantern outside glowed steadily, its light cutting through the gray haze like a stubborn star. She couldn't shake the image of Gideon, his gray eyes, his voice, the way he seemed to know more than he let on. It was just a dream, she told herself, but the weight of it lingered, heavy as the damp air. Downstairs, Mrs. Tilling was kneading dough, her hands moving with practiced rhythm. "You're up early," the widow said, glancing at Clara. "Sleep well?" "Well enough," Clara lied, pouring herself coffee. The dream felt too personal to share, too strange. "Who's Gideon?" "I met him last night near the trail." Mrs. Tilling's hand stilled just for a moment. "Gideon Wolf? Keeps to himself mostly. Lives out by the old mill. Folks say he's tied to this place in ways most aren't." Her tone was careful, like she was choosing each word. "Best not to get too close. Elderglow's got a way of pulling people in." Clara nodded, but her curiosity burned brighter. After breakfast, she headed into town, the rain a light drizzle now. The cobblestone streets glistened and the lanterns swayed gently, their flames untouched by the wet. At the cafe, Eliza was wiping down tables, her braids swinging as she hummed a tune. "Morning, city girl," Eliza said with a grin. "You look like you've got questions." Clara slid into a booth, cradling her coffee. "Gideon, what's his deal?" Mrs. Tilling made him sound like a ghost story. Eliza laughed, but it was softer than before. "Gideon's no ghost, but he's different. Been here forever, or so it feels. He's charming, sure, but there's a shadow on him. Some say he made a promise to one of the lanterns years ago. Never left town since." She leaned in, her voice dropping. "He's got a way of making you feel seen, but don't let it fool you. Elderglow's lanterns don't let go easy." Clara's thoughts flickered to the dream Gideon's outstretched hand, his words about a pull. She sipped her coffee, hiding the unease creeping up her spine. "Sounds like a tall tale." "Maybe," Eliza said, shrugging. "But tall tales have roots here. Just watch yourself around him." The day passed in a blur of errands and small talk with townsfolk, all of whom seemed to know Clara was the newcomer. Their smiles were warm, but their eyes held a quiet watchfulness, as if waiting for her to stumble into something she didn't understand. By evening, the rain had stopped, and Clara found herself drawn back to the trail where she'd seen Gideon. The lantern still hung there, its flame steady, almost pulsing. She stood before it, mesmerized. The light seemed to hum, a faint vibration that echoed in her chest. She reached out, not to touch it, but to feel the air around it. It was warm, unnaturally so, like a breath held too long. "You're back." Gideon's voice cut through the silence, and Clara spun around. He stood a few paces away, his coat damp from the earlier rain, his hat tilted low. "Told you not to mess with those." "I'm not," she said, her voice sharper than intended. "Just curious. What's so special about them?" Gideon stepped closer, his gray eyes catching the lantern's glow. "They're promises, Clara. Old ones, made by folks who loved too hard or lost too much. They light the way for those who can't move on." He paused, studying her. "You feel it, don't you? Like something's calling you." Her breath caught. He'd said the same words in her dream. "How do you know my name?" He smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips. "Small town. Word travels. But you're not just passing through, are you? Elderglow chooses people. And it's chosen you." Clara's heart thudded. "I don't believe in that. I came here to start over, not to get tangled in ghost stories." Gideon's smile faded, but his eyes held hers. "You can't outrun what's already waiting for you. Be careful, Clara. The lanterns don't just light the path, they hold it." He turned and walked into the shadows, leaving her alone with the lantern's glow. That night, the dream came again, sharper this time. Gideon stood on the path, but now a woman was with him, her face pale, her dress old-fashioned, her eyes locked on Clara. "He's not yours," the woman whispered, her voice like wind through dry leaves. "He's mine." Clara woke, her skin clammy, the lantern outside her window burning brighter than ever. She lay still, listening to the hum in the air, wondering if it was the wind or something else entirely. The dream clung to Clara like mist, the woman's whisper echoing in her mind as she dressed the next morning. The air in Elderglow felt heavier today, as if the valley itself was holding its breath. Outside, the lanterns glowed softly, their light weaving through the morning fog. Clara couldn't shake the image of the pale woman or the way Gideon's eyes seemed to follow her, even in sleep. At breakfast, Mrs. Tilling was quieter than usual, her hands busy with the teapot, but her gaze distant. "You look troubled," she said, setting a cup before Clara. "Dreams getting to you?" Clara hesitated, stirring her tea. "Just restless. This place feels alive, somehow." The widow's lips pressed thin. Elderglow's always been alive. The lanterns, the hills, the promises, they talk to those who listen. Best not to answer back too quick. She turned away, leaving Clara with her thoughts and the faint hum of the wind. Determined to clear her head, Clara decided to explore beyond the town's edges. She followed a winding path into the hills, where the lanterns hung sparse but steady, their flames casting golden pools on the ground. The trail led to an old stone bridge, its arches moss-covered and worn. Beneath it, a stream murmured, its water catching the light like liquid glass. As she crossed the bridge, a figure appeared on the other side, Gideon. He leaned against the railing, his coat unbuttoned, his hat pushed back to reveal those gray eyes. "You're wandering far today," he said, his voice carrying that same lazy drawl. "Looking for something?" Clara's pulse quickened, but she kept her tone light. "Just stretching my legs. You seem to show up everywhere I go." He chuckled, stepping closer. "Maybe you're the one showing up where I am. Ever think of that?" His gaze soft, but there was an edge to it, like he was testing her. "This bridge, it's older than the town. Folks used to make promises here, swear their hearts to someone. The lanterns, remember?" Clara glanced at the nearest lantern, its flame flickering as if in agreement. "You talk about them like they're alive, aren't they?" Gideon's voice was low, almost intimate. "They hold what people leave behind: love, regret, longing. You can feel it, Clara. I see it in your eyes." She stepped back, her cheeks warming. "You don't know me, don't I?" He tilted his head, studying her. "You ran from something, didn't you? A hurt that won't heal. Elderglow calls to people like you, people who need to be found." Her throat tightened. He was too close to the truth, her broken engagement, the ache she'd buried in the city. "I don't need finding," she said, turning to leave. "I just need peace." Gideon didn't follow, but his voice carried after her. "Peace comes at a price here. Mind the lanterns, Clara. They're watching." The words stayed with her as she walked back to town, the hum in the air growing louder like a pulse. At the cafe, Eliza was sweeping the floor, her usual cheer dimmed. "You look spooked," she said, leaning on her broom. "Run into Gideon again?" Clara nodded, settling into a chair. "He's intense. Keeps talking about the lanterns like they're people. And last night I dreamed of a woman. She said Gideon was hers." Eliza's broom stilled. "A woman? Pale, maybe? Dark hair, old dress?" Clara's silence was answer enough. Eliza's voice dropped. "That's Lillian. Story goes, she and Gideon were sweethearts long ago. Made a promise by the bridge, sealed it with a lantern. But she left, some say ran off, some say worse. Gideon never got over it. Folks think she's still here, in a way." Clara's stomach twisted. "You mean a ghost?" Eliza shrugged, but her eyes were serious. "Not the kind you're thinking. More like a memory that won't fade. Be careful, Clara. Gideon's charm pulls you in, but Lillian's shadow doesn't share." That night, Clara avoided the trail, staying in her room with a book she couldn't focus on. The lantern outside her window seemed to hum louder, its light casting long shadows across the floor. When she finally slept, the dream returned. The pale woman Lillian stood alone now, her eyes hollow. "He's not yours," she whispered again, but this time her voice cracked with sorrow. "He never was." Clara woke, her heart pounding, the lantern's glow flooding her room. She rose, drawn to the window, and saw a figure in the distance, standing by the trail. It wasn't Gideon, it was a woman, her silhouette faint but unmistakable, watching her. The figure by the trail haunted Clara as she woke, the morning light doing little to ease the chill in her bones. The lantern outside her window burned steadily, its glow softer now, but no less insistent. She couldn't tell if the woman she'd seen was a trick of the fog or something more, but Lillian's name felt heavy on her tongue. like a secret she wasn't meant to carry. Downstairs, Mrs. Tilling was setting out fresh bread, the kitchen warm with the scent of yeast. "You're pale as milk," the widow said, eyeing Clara. "Elderglow's getting under your skin, isn't it?" Clara forced a smile, spreading butter on her slice. "Just adjusting. The air here's different." Mrs. Tilling snorted softly. "It's not the air. It's the valley. It holds on to things, people, promises, pain. You're feeling it, whether you admit it or not." She paused, her hands stilling. "Heard you've been talking to Gideon. Mind your step there. He's got a heart, but it's not free." Clara's grip tightened on her knife. "I'm not looking for his heart. I just want to understand this place." The widow's gaze was piercing. Understanding Elderglow comes at a cost. Some truths don't let you go. Clara left the boarding house with those words circling her mind. The town was quiet, the cobblestones slick from last night's mist. She meant to visit the general store, but her feet carried her elsewhere, toward the old mill where Mrs. Tilling said Gideon lived. It stood at the valley's edge, its wheels still but groaning faintly in the breeze. Lanterns hung along the path, their flames casting golden flickers on the weathered wood. She hadn't planned to knock, but curiosity or something deeper pushed her forward. The door creaked open before her fist met it, and Gideon stood there, his shirt sleeves rolled up, his gray eyes catching the light. "Clara," he said, his voice warm but guarded. "Didn't expect you here." "I didn't expect to come," she admitted, her cheeks warming. I saw something last night. A woman by the trail. And I keep dreaming about her. About you." His expression shifted, a shadow crossing his face. He stepped aside, gesturing her in. "Come inside. The wind's got ears out there." The mill's interior was sparse but tidy, with a table, a few chairs, and shelves lined with old books. A single lantern hung by the window, its flame steady. Gideon poured her tea, the steam curling between them as they sat. "Tell me about her," he said, his voice low. "The woman you saw." Clara described the figure, pale, dark-haired, her silhouette faint but sharp. "Eliza said her name's Lillian. That she was yours." Gideon's jaw tightened, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup. "Eliza talks too much. But she's not wrong. Lillian was part of my life once. We were young, foolish. Made a promise by the bridge, lit a lantern to seal it. She left, though. Broke that promise. I stayed." Clara's heart ached at the pain in his voice, but unease stirred too. Left? Or something else? People say she's still here. He met her gaze, his eyes unreadable. People say a lot. Lillian's gone, Clara. What's left is just echoes. The lanterns hold them sometimes. You're new here, so they're loud for you. That's all. She wanted to believe him, but the dream Lillian's hollow eyes, her whispered claim felt too real. Why do I keep seeing her? Why you? Gideon leaned closer, his voice softening. Because you're open to it. Elderglow finds the cracks in people, the hurts, the hopes. You came here running from something, didn't you? The lanterns see that. They call to it. Her breath caught. He was right again about the hurt she carried, her fiance's betrayal, the life she'd left behind. That doesn't explain why it's her, or why you're in my dreams. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Maybe I'm just a good listener. Or maybe the valley's telling you something. Be careful, Clara. Don't let the lanterns pull you too deep." She left the mill with more questions than answers, Gideon's words weaving through her thoughts like the hum in the air. That evening she stayed in, avoiding the trails and their lanterns. But sleep brought no escape. The dream returned, vivid and sharp. Lillian stood by the bridge now, her dress rippling as if caught in a wind Clara couldn't feel. "He lies," she whispered, her voice trembling with anger. "Ask him about the lantern we lit. Ask him why it still burns." Clara woke, her pulse racing, the lantern outside her window glowing brighter than ever. She rose, drawn to it, and saw the same silhouette by the trail, Lillian, watching. The silhouette by the trail lingered in Clara's mind as she woke, the dawn light pale and thin. The lantern outside her window glowed with a steady warmth, but it felt less comforting now, more like a gaze she couldn't escape. Lillian's whispered words from the dream, "He lies," echoed sharp and insistent. Clara didn't know what to believe, but the knot in her chest tightened with every thought of Gideon and the lantern he'd shared with Lillian. She skipped breakfast, avoiding Mrs. Tilling's knowing eyes, and headed straight for the cafe. The town was stirring, shopkeepers sweeping their stoops, lanterns swaying gently in the morning breeze. Inside the cafe, Eliza was pouring coffee for a handful of locals, her smile bright but fading when she saw Clara's expression. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Eliza said, sliding a mug across the counter. "What's happened now?" Clara wrapped her hands around the mug, the heat grounding her. "I saw her again, Lillian, by the trail last night. And in my dream she said Gideon's lying. About a lantern they lit together." Eliza's eyes widened, and she glanced around before leaning closer. "Lillian's lantern? That's not a story folks tell lightly. They say it's still out there, by the bridge. Never flickers, never fades. Some think it's why she can't leave her promise, is still bound to it." She hesitated, her voice dropping. "If she's talking to you, Clara, she wants something. And Gideon, he's not telling you everything." Clara's stomach churned. Why would he lie? What's he hiding? Eliza shrugged, but her expression was uneasy. "Gideon's always been a mystery. Charming, sure, but he's tied to this place in ways I don't understand. If Lillian's reaching out, maybe she's warning you. Or maybe she's jealous." "Jealous?" Clara frowned, the idea unsettling. Gideon and I aren't." Eliza raised an eyebrow, a small smirk tugging at her lips. "You sure about that? I've seen how he looks at you. Like you're a puzzle he wants to solve. Just be careful, okay? The lanterns don't like sharing." Clara left the cafe with her thoughts tangled, the hum in the air louder now, almost a melody. She didn't plan to seek Gideon out, but her feet led her toward the bridge, the place where he and Lillian had made their promise. The stone arches loomed ahead, moss clinging to their curves, and the stream below shimmered in the midday light. A single lantern hung from a post, its flame steady, brighter than the others she'd seen. She stood before it, drawn to its glow. The air around it felt thick, like a memory pressing against her skin. She didn't touch it, but her fingers hovered, the warmth pulling at something deep inside her own promises, her own losses. The hum grew, and for a moment she thought she heard a voice, soft and sorrowful, saying her name. Clara. It wasn't the lantern. Gideon stood at the bridge's far end, his coat unbuttoned, his gray eyes locked on her. You shouldn't be here. She stepped back, her heart racing. Why not? What's so special about this lantern? Lillian told me you're lying. About her. About this. His face hardened, but his voice stayed calm. Lillian's gone, Clara. What you're seeing, it's just the valley playing tricks. The lanterns hold memories, and sometimes they spill out. You're new, so they're loud for you. Stop saying that. Her voice rose, sharper than she meant. I'm not imagining her. She's real and she's angry. What happened between you two? Why does her lantern still burn? Gideon crossed the bridge, stopping a few paces away. His eyes searched hers, and for a moment she saw something raw guilt, maybe, or grief. Lillian and I, we were young. We loved each other, or thought we did. We lit that lantern to swear we'd stay together, no matter what. But she couldn't handle Elderglow. The valley asks too much. She left and I stayed. That's all there is. Clara shook her head, Lillian's whisper echoing. She says you're lying. What did you do, Gideon? He flinched, just barely, but it was enough to make her doubt him. I didn't do anything, he said, his voice low. She chose to go. The lantern's still here because promises don't break easy. You need to let this go, Clara. For your own sake. He turned and walked away, his footsteps fading into the hum of the valley. Clara stared at the lantern, its flame pulsing like a heartbeat. That night she stayed in her room, the book she tried to read forgotten, on her lap. Sleep came reluctantly, and with it the dream. Lillian stood by the bridge, her eyes no longer hollow but fierce. He broke me, she whispered, her voice trembling. Ask him about the night I left. Ask him what he promised. Clara woke, her breath shallow, the lantern outside her window burning brighter than ever. She rose, drawn to the glass, and saw the silhouette again, Lillian, standing by the trail, her gaze fixed on the bridge. The silhouette by the bridge stayed with Clara as she rose, the morning air sharp with the scent of frost. The lantern outside her window glowed steadily, its light a quiet challenge, daring her to unravel the truth. Lillian's words, "Ask him about the night I left," twisted in her mind, each syllable heavy with accusation. Clara felt caught in a web. The thread spun from Gideon's charm, Lillian's sorrow, and the lantern's endless glow. She lingered in her room, avoiding Mrs. Tilling's sharp gaze, and pored over her thoughts. Gideon's story about Lillian leaving didn't add up, not with the dreams, not with the figure watching her from the trail. The valley's hum was louder now, a melody that seemed to weave through her bones, urging her to dig deeper. She needed answers, not cryptic warnings. By midday, Clara found herself at the general store, hoping Eliza might offer clarity. The shop was warm, filled with the scent of apples and wax. Eliza was restocking shelves, her braids swinging as she moved. "You're back," she said, glancing up, "and you look like you've got more ghosts on your tail." Clara managed a weak smile, leaning against the counter. Lillian again. She told me to ask Gideon about the night she left. Said he broke her. What does that mean? Eliza's hands paused, a jar of honey poised mid her. That's heavy. Nobody knows exactly what happened to Lillian. The story's fuzzy. Some say she ran off. Some say she drowned in the stream by the bridge. But if she's talking to you, saying he broke her... She shook her head. Gideon's not telling you the whole truth. That lantern by the bridge? It's theirs. If it's still burning, it's because their promise never died. Or she never let it go. Clara's chest tightened. So what do I do? Confront him? I barely know him, but he's everywhere in my dreams, on the trails. It's like he's waiting for me. Eliza set the jar down, her voice low. Go to the bridge. That's where it all started. The lantern might show you something. But Clara, don't touch it. Promises like that, they don't let go easy. The words followed Clara as she left the store, her boots crunching on the frost-dusted path. The bridge wasn't far, its stone arches looming like silent sentinels. The lantern hung from its post, its flame brighter than the pale sun above, casting a warm glow that felt almost alive. She stood before it, the hum in the air now a steady pulse, wrapping around her like a thread. She didn't touch the lantern, but she closed her eyes, letting the hum fill her. For a moment she saw it, a flash of memory not her own. A young woman, Lillian, her dark hair loose, laughing as she stood by the bridge with Gideon. His hand held hers, their voices soft as they swore to stay together, the lantern flickering to life above them. But the scene shifted, Lillian's face pale, her eyes wide with betrayal, Gideon's voice raised, the stream rushing below. Clara gasped, stepping back, her heart pounding. The vision faded, but the hum remained, louder now, like a voice pleading. She turned to leave, but Gideon was there, standing at the bridge's edge, his gray eyes shadowed under his hat. You're digging too deep, he said, his voice low but firm. I told you to let it go. Clara's hands clenched. I saw her, Gideon. With you. Here. She was happy, then she wasn't. What happened that night? What did you do? He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. You don't know what you're asking. Lillian made her choice. She couldn't stay not with me, not with Elderglow. The lantern's all that's left of her. Don't make it more than it is. Then why is she still here? Clara's voice trembled, but she held his gaze. She's in my dreams by the trail, telling me you broke her. If she left, why does she feel so trapped? Gideon's jaw tightened, and for a moment he looked older, worn by something heavier than time. The valley holds on to pain, Clara. Lillian's gone, but her regret isn't. You're stirring it up, and it's not safe. Not for you. He turned to leave, but Clara grabbed his arm. Tell me the truth, Gideon. What happened to her? He'd pulled free, his eyes flashing with something like fear. Some truths don't help. They only bind you tighter. Stay away from the bridge, Clara. For your own good. He walked away, leaving her with the lantern's glow and the hum that wouldn't stop. That night, the dream came again. Lillian stood by the stream, her dress soaked, her eyes blazing. He didn't tell you, she whispered, her voice sharp as glass. He promised me forever, then took it away. Find the letter, Clara. In the mill? It's all there. Clara woke, her breath ragged, the lantern outside her window burning brighter than ever. She knew where she had to go next. The dream's weight pressed on Clara as she woke, the lantern outside her window casting a soft, unyielding glow. Lillian's words, "Find the letter in the mill," rang in her mind, sharp and urgent. The hum of the valley was louder now, a melody that seemed to pull her toward answers she wasn't sure she wanted. She dressed quickly, the chill of the morning barely registering against the fire of her resolve. Mrs. Tilling was in the kitchen, her hands buried in dough, but her eyes flicked to Clara with a knowing glint. "You're restless again," she said, not looking up. "Chasing shadows won't settle you." Clara paused, her coat half on. "I'm not chasing. I just need to understand." The widow's hands stilled. Some things in Elderglow don't want understanding. They want you to leave them be. She met Clara's gaze, her voice softening. "Be careful, girl. The valley's got a way of keeping what it claims." Clara nodded, but her mind was already on the mill. She left the boarding house, the cobblestone streets quiet under a sky heavy with clouds. The path to the mill was familiar now, lined with lanterns that flickered as she passed, their flames almost watchful. The mill loomed ahead, its wheels silent, its wooden walls weathered but sturdy. The lantern by the door glowed brighter than the rest, as if it knew why she'd come. She knocked, but no answer came. Testing the door, she found it unlocked, creaking open to reveal the dim interior. The air inside was thick with the scent of old wood and dust. The single lantern by the window, casting long shadows. Clara's heart thudded as she stepped inside, her footsteps echoing. "Gideon?" She called, but only silence answered. She moved to the shelves, her fingers brushing over books and trinkets, a pocket watch, a faded photograph of a young couple, a woman's scarf folded carefully. Her breath caught as she recognized the woman's face from her dreams. Lillian, smiling, her dark hair loose. Clara's hands trembled as she searched, guided by an instinct she couldn't name. Beneath a stack of papers, she found it a letter, yellowed and creased, sealed with a wax stamp long since cracked. She hesitated, the hum in the air now a pulse in her ears. Breaking the seal, she unfolded the letter, Lillian's handwriting looping across the page. Asterisk Gideon, I can't stay. You promised me forever, but your heart's with the valley, not me. I'm leaving tonight. Don't follow. Let the lantern burn out. Asterisk. The words ended abruptly, as if written in haste, but a second page in Gideon's slanting script was tucked behind it. Asterisk Lillian. I didn't mean it. I was angry. Come back. The lantern's still burning for you. Asterisk. Clara's chest tightened. The letter confirmed Lillian had left or meant to. But the dreams, the silhouette, the whispers, they suggested something else. She tucked the letter into her pocket, her mind racing. Had Lillian drowned, as some rumored? Had Gideon's anger driven her to the stream? The hum grew louder, almost a voice now, urging her to the bridge. She left the mill, the letter heavy against her heart, and headed for the stone arches. The lantern there burned fiercely, its glow cutting through the gathering dusk. She stood before it, the stream's murmur below like a whispered secret. Closing her eyes, she let the hum fill her, and another vision came. Lillian by the bridge, her dress soaked, her face twisted with hurt. Gideon's voice, sharp with anger, echoed, Asterisk, if you leave, you're nothing to me. Lillian's footsteps faltered, the stream rushing closer. Clara gasped, the vision fading, her hands shaking. She didn't hear Gideon approach until his voice cut through the hum. You found it, didn't you? He stood at the bridge's edge, his gray eyes dark with something like regret. "The letter." She turned, clutching the paper. "You lied. She didn't just leave. You fought. You said something that broke her. What happened, Gideon? Did she fall? Did you?" His face paled, but his voice stayed steady. "I didn't touch her, Clara. We argued, yes. I was young, stupid. I told her to go, and she did. The stream was high that night. If she slipped..." He looked away, his voice breaking. "I've carried that guilt every day. The lantern burns because I can't let her go." Clara's throat tightened. "She's still here, Gideon. In my dreams by the trail. She's trapped. Because of you." He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "Then help me free her. Please. I don't know how." That night, the dream came again. Lillian stood by the stream, her eyes softer now, almost pleading. "The lantern," she whispered. "Break it, Clara. Set me free." Clara woke, her breath ragged, the lantern outside her window blazing, its light spilling across the valley like a call. The dawn broke soft and gray, but Clara felt no peace in it. Lillian's plea, "Break the lantern, set me free," echoed in her mind, a weight heavier than the letter still tucked in her pocket. The lantern outside her window glowed with an intensity that seemed to pulse with the valley's hum, urging her toward the bridge. She wasn't sure what breaking the lantern meant, or if she could even do it, but the idea of Lillian trapped in its glow gnawed at her. Mrs. Tilling was in the parlor, mending a quilt, when Clara came downstairs. The widow's eyes flicked up, sharp as ever. "You've got that look," she said, her needle pausing, "like someone who's seen too much and still wants more." Clara hesitated, her fingers brushing the letter in her pocket. "I found something. About Lillian. She wants me to do something, but I don't know if I should." Mrs. Tilling set the quilt aside, her gaze steady. "The valley's asking you to choose, girl. Whatever Lillian wants, it's not just about her. It's about you, too. Elderglow doesn't let folks meddle with its promises for free." Clara nodded, the words settling like stones in her chest. She left the boarding house, the air crisp and heavy with the scent of pine. The town was quiet, its lanterns swaying gently, their flames casting soft shadows on the cobblestones. She meant to find Eliza to ask what breaking a lantern might mean, but her feet carried her to the bridge instead. The stone arches stood silent, the stream below murmuring like a restless spirit. The lantern hung from its post, its flame brighter than the morning light, almost daring her to act. She stood before it, the hum in the air now a steady thrum, like a heartbeat. Her hand hovered near the lantern, the warmth radiating against her skin. She didn't touch it, but the pull was undeniable, a thread tying her to Lillian, to Gideon, to the valley itself. She closed her eyes, and a fragment of memory not her own flickered. Lillian's tear-streaked face, her hands clutching the lantern as she whispered, "I'm sorry, Gideon. I can't stay, The stream roared in the background, its waters dark and swift. Clara's eyes snapped open, her breath shallow. The vision felt like a truth she wasn't ready to hold. She turned to leave, but Eliza's voice stopped her. "Clara? What are you doing out here?" The young woman stood at the bridge's edge, her braid loose, her eyes wide with concern. I don't know," Clara admitted, stepping back from the lantern. Lillian told me to break it, to set her free, but I don't know what that means. Eliza's face paled. Break it? Clara, you can't. The lanterns aren't just glass and flame, they're promises. Break one and you break the bond it holds. It could free Lillian, sure, but it might bind you instead. Or worse. She glanced at the lantern, its glow reflecting in her eyes. Nobody's broken one in years. The last time, well, folks don't talk about it. Clara's stomach twisted. What happened? Eliza hesitated, her voice low. A man, years back, broke a lantern to free his wife's spirit. It worked. In a way, she stopped haunting him. But he was never the same. Left town a month later, hollow as a husk. The valley takes its due. Clara's hand tightened around the letter. So what do I do? Lillian's trapped. She's asking me for help. Eliza stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. Talk to Gideon. He's part of this. If Lillian's stuck, it's because of their promise. He needs to face it, not you. Clara nodded, though doubt gnawed at her. Gideon's guilt, his half-truths, they made her wary, but she couldn't ignore the pull to help Lillian. She found him at the mill, sitting on the porch, his gray eyes distant as he watched the horizon. He stood when he saw her, his expression guarded. You're back, he said. What now? Clara pulled the letter from her pocket, holding it out. Lillian told me to break the lantern, to free her. But I need the truth, Gideon. All of it? What happened that night? He took the letter, his fingers lingering on the paper. I told you. We fought. I said things I shouldn't have. She left and the stream, his voice cracked, and he looked away. I don't know if she slipped or chose it, but I didn't stop her. That's on me. Clara's heart ached, but she pressed on. She's not gone, Gideon. She's here in the lanterns in my dreams. She says you broke her. If I break the lantern, will it end? His eyes snapped to hers, wide with fear. Don't. You don't know what it'll cost. The lanterns hold more than promises, they hold us. Break it, and you might lose yourself. That night the dream returned. Lillian stood by the lantern, her eyes pleading. Break it, she whispered. Free us both. Clara woke, the lantern outside blazing, its light spilling across the valley like a cry. The lantern's glow lingered in Clara's vision as she woke, its light seeping through the morning mist like a memory that refused to fade. Lillian's plea, free us both, echoed in her mind, a call that felt as much her own as it was the spirit's. The hum of the valley was a constant now, weaving through her thoughts, pulling her toward the bridge and the promise she wasn't sure she could keep. She felt the weight of the letter in her pocket, its words a tether to Gideon's guilt and Lillian's pain. Downstairs, Mrs. Tilling was brewing tea, the kitchen warm but quiet. She glanced at Clara, her eyes narrowing. You're carrying something heavy, she said, pouring a cup. More than just dreams now, isn't it? Clara sat, her fingers tracing the cup's rim. I'm trying to help someone, but it feels like I'm sinking instead. The widow's lips pursed. Elderglow's lanterns don't ask for help, they demand it. Whatever you're chasing, make sure it's worth the price. The valley doesn't give without taking. She turned back to her work, leaving Clara with the tea and her tangled thoughts. The morning was crisp, the cobblestone streets slick with dew as Clara walked toward the cafe. She needed Eliza's perspective, something to ground her before she faced the bridge again. The cafe was busy, the hum of voices mixing with the valley's melody in her ears. Eliza was behind the counter, her smile fading when she saw Clara's expression. "You're still on about the lantern, aren't you?" Eliza said, wiping her hands on her apron. "I can see it in your face." Clara nodded, her voice low. "Lillian said breaking it would free us both, but Gideon says it'll cost me. I don't know who to trust." Eliza leaned closer, her eyes serious. "Neither of them's lying, Clara. That's the trouble. Lillian wants out, but the lantern's tied to her promise and Gideon's. Breaking it might let her go, but promises and Elderglow aren't just words. They're part of you. You break one and the valley might take something back, your heart, your peace, maybe more." She paused, glancing at the door. "Gideon's scared, not just for Lillian, but for you. He's falling for you, you know." Clara's cheeks warmed, but she shook her head. "He's tied to her, to this place. I'm just caught in the middle." Eliza's smile was soft but sad. "Maybe, but the valley's got a way of weaving folks together. Go to the bridge, Clara. Not to break the lantern, not yet. Just listen. The lanterns talk if you let them." Clara left the cafe, the hum louder now, guiding her to the bridge. The stone arches stood as they always had, the stream below whispering secrets. The lantern hung from its post, its flame steady, brighter than the clouded sky. She stood before it, the air thick with warmth, the hum a melody that seemed to sing her name. She closed her eyes, letting it fill her, and a vision came: Lillian and Gideon, young and in love, their hands clasped as they lit the lantern. But the scene shifted, Lillian's face pale, her voice trembling as she said, "I can't stay." Gideon's anger, his hand grabbing her wrist, then letting go as she stumbled toward the stream. Clara's eyes flew open, her breath ragged. The vision wasn't new, but this time she felt Lillian's fear, her heart break, as if it were her own. She stepped back, her hand brushing the lantern's glass. It was warm, almost alive, and for a moment she thought she could shatter it free, Lillian and the hum. But Eliza's warning, Gideon's fear, held her back. "Clara?" Gideon's voice broke the silence. He stood at the bridge's far end, his coat unbuttoned, his gray eyes shadowed. "You can't do it. Not alone." She turned, her voice sharp. "Then help me, Gideon. Lillian's trapped because of you. Because of your promise. If I break the lantern, what happens to her? To you?" He crossed the bridge, stopping close enough that she could see the pain in his eyes. "I don't know. The lanterns hold us, her, me, this valley. If you break it, she might go free. But it'll take something from you, Clara. I can't let you pay that price." Her heart ached, torn between his plea and Lillian's. "You don't get to decide that. She's asking me to help her. I can't ignore that." Gideon's hand reached for hers, then stopped. "Then let me help. We'll do it together. But not yet. There's something I need to show you first. Tomorrow at the mill." That night the dream returned. Lillian stood by the lantern, her eyes softer now, almost grateful. "You're close," she whispered. "Find his promise, then break mine." Clara woke, the lantern outside blazing, its light a beacon in the dark. The lantern's glow lingered in Clara's room as she woke, its light softer now, but no less persistent, like a whisper that wouldn't fade. Lillian's words asterisk, find his promise. Then break mine asterisk hung in her mind, tangled with Gideon's plea to wait. The hum of the valley was a steady pulse now, weaving through her thoughts, pulling her toward the mill and whatever truth Gideon meant to share. She felt caught, not just between Lillian and Gideon, but between her own heart and the valley's quiet demands. Mrs. Tilling was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup, the air thick with the scent of herbs. She glanced at Clara, her eyes sharp as ever. "You're leaving soon, aren't you?" she said, her voice low. "Not the town. Something deeper." Clara paused, her coat slung over her arm. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I just need to finish this." The widow's gaze softened, but her words were firm. "Elderglow's lanterns don't let go easy. Whatever you're chasing, it's chasing you back. Mind your heart, girl." She turned back to her pot, leaving Clara with the weight of her warning. The morning was cool, the cobblestone streets quiet as Clara made her way to the mill. The lanterns along the path flickered, their flames casting golden pools that seemed to guide her steps. The mill stood at the valley's edge, its wheels still, its walls worn but steady. The lantern by the door glowed brightly, as if it knew her purpose. She knocked, her heart thudding, and Gideon opened the door, his gray eyes weary but warm. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. The mill was, as she remembered, sparse, tidy, the air heavy with the scent of old wood. A single lantern hung by the window, its flame steady. Gideon gestured to a chair, but Clara stayed standing, her hands in her pockets, the letter still there like a silent accusation. "What do you need to show me?" she asked, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Gideon ran a hand through his hair, his expression torn. "You want the truth about Lillian." "About me?" "It's not just in the letter." He crossed to a small wooden box on a shelf, its surface carved with faint patterns. He opened it, pulling out a folded piece of paper, its edges worn but intact. "This is mine. My promise to her." Clara took the paper, her fingers trembling as she unfolded it. Gideon's handwriting was tight, almost urgent. Asterisk Lillian, I'll stay. Always. No matter what you choose, the lantern's ours. I'm yours. The words were simple, raw, a vow that felt alive in her hands. She looked up, meeting his gaze. "You wrote this after she left?" He nodded, his voice low. "I was too late. She was gone by then, her choice, or the streams, I don't know. But I lit another lantern for her here at the mill. I thought it would bring her back. It didn't. It just kept her here." Clara's throat tightened. "So she's trapped because of you. Your promise, not just hers." Gideon's eyes darkened with guilt. "I didn't know. I thought love could hold her even after she left. But the lanterns, they don't just hold promises. They hold us. If you break hers, mine stays. I don't know what that means for her. Or you." Clara's hand closed around the letter, her mind racing. "She told me to find your promise, to break hers. She thinks it'll free her." Gideon stepped closer, his voice soft but urgent. "Then we do it together. But not at the bridge, not yet. The lantern here, the one I lit, it's part of this. We start with mine." They moved to the window where the lantern hung, its flame brighter than the gray light outside. The hum in the air was louder now, a melody that seemed to sing of release. Gideon's hand hovered near the glass, his eyes locked on Clara's. If we break it, it's not just Lillian who's affected. It's me. Maybe you. Are you sure? Clara's heart pounded, but she nodded. She's asking for freedom. I can't ignore that. Together they lifted the lantern from its hook, the glass warm under their hands. The flame flickered, as if sensing their intent. Clara closed her eyes, and a vision came Lillian by the stream, her face soft, almost at peace. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice fading into the hum. Clara's grip tightened, but before they could act, the dream's echo lingered, and she hesitated. That night, Lillian appeared again, standing by the mill's lantern, her eyes clear. "His first," she whispered, "then mine." Clara woke, the lantern outside her window blazing, its light a call to finish what she'd started. The morning came with a quiet that felt fragile, as if the valley itself were holding its breath. Clara woke to the lantern's glow outside her window, its light steady but softer now, like a flame that knew its time was near. Lillian's words, "his first, then mine," echoed in her mind, a guide through the tangle of promises and pain. The hum of Elderglow was a melody now, weaving through her thoughts, urging her back to the mill where Gideon's lantern waited. She felt the weight of his promise, the letter still in her pocket, and the choice she couldn't delay any longer. Mrs. Tilling was in the parlor, knitting by the fire, her needles clicking softly. She didn't look up as Clara passed, but her voice followed. "You're close to something, aren't you? Mind the valley, girl. It doesn't let go without a fight." Clara paused, her hand on the door. "I'm trying to do what's right, for someone who's been trapped too long." The widow's eyes flicked up, sharp but kind. "Right's a tricky thing in Elderglow. Just make sure you come back whole." She returned to her knitting, leaving Clara with the weight of her words. The air outside was crisp, the cobblestone streets damp with morning dew. The lanterns swayed gently, their flames casting golden flickers that seemed to point toward the mill. Clara's steps were sure, driven by the hum that sang in her bones. The mill stood as it always had, its wheel silent, its lantern by the door glowing brighter than the pale sun. She knocked, and Gideon opened the door, his gray eyes heavy with something unspoken. "You're here," he said, his voice low. "I didn't sleep much. Kept thinking about her. About you." Clara stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of wood and memory. "Lillian told me to break yours first, then hers. I don't know what it'll do, but I can't stop now." Gideon nodded, his jaw tight. He led her to the window where his lantern hung, its flame steady, almost alive. The hum was louder here, a pulse that seemed to bind them to the glass. "I lit this for her," he said, his voice rough. "After she was gone. Thought it would keep her close. Didn't know it would trap her." Clara's hand brushed the letter in her pocket, his promise to Lillian heavy in her mind. "You loved her, but you're holding her here. We have to let her go." Gideon's eyes met hers, raw with guilt and something softer care, maybe, for her. "If we break it, it's not just her. It's me. My promise. I don't know what I'll be after." Clara's heart ached, but she reached for the lantern, her fingers grazing the warm glass. "Then we do it together. For her. For you." They lifted the lantern from its hook, the flame flickering as if sensing their intent. The hum swelled, a melody of release and loss. Clara closed her eyes, and a vision came. Lillian by the mill, her face soft, her hands outstretched. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice clear, almost free. Gideon's hand trembled beside hers, but he held steady, his breath shallow. "Now," Clara said, and they let the lantern fall. It struck the floor, the glass shattering with a sound like a sigh. The flame flared, then faded, the hum quieting to a whisper. Clara's chest tightened, a wave of sorrow washing over her. Not hers, but Lillian's, released at last. Gideon staggered, his face pale, as if part of him had broken with the glass. "It's done," he whispered, his voice hollow. "My promise, it's gone." Clara reached for his arm, steadying him. "Not yet. Hers is still at the bridge. We finish this." He nodded, his eyes distant but determined. They left the mill, the valley's hum softer now, guiding them to the bridge. The stone arches loomed ahead, the stream below murmuring softly. The lantern hung from its post, its flame steady, waiting. Clara stood before it, the air warm, the hum a faint echo of Lillian's voice. Before she could act, Gideon spoke, his voice low. "Clara, wait. If you break hers, the valley might take something from you. I can't let you." She turned, her eyes fierce. "It's not your choice. Lillian's been trapped long enough. I'm doing this." That night, the dream came one last time. Lillian stood by the bridge, her eyes clear, her smile soft. "You're almost there," she whispered. "Break it. Free me." Clara woke, the lantern outside her window dimmer now, its light a quiet farewell. The dawn was soft, the valley wrapped in a hush that felt like the pause before a final breath. Clara woke with Lillian's voice still in her ears. "Break it. Free me." And the lantern outside her window dim, its glow fading like a star giving way to morning. The hum of Elderglow was faint now, a whisper rather than a song, but it still pulled her toward the bridge, toward the end of a promise she'd never made but felt bound. Gideon's broken lantern at the mill had shifted something in the valley, and in her, but Lillian's light still burned, waiting. Mrs. Tilling was in the kitchen, her hand still as Clara passed. "You're finishing it today, aren't you?" the widow said, her voice low, almost mournful. "The valley's quiet. It knows." Clara met her gaze, her own resolve steady. "I have to. For her." Mrs. Tilling nodded, her eyes soft but heavy. "Then go gently, girl. Elderglow doesn't forget what you give it." She turned back to her work, leaving Clara with the weight of her words in the path ahead. The air was cool, the cobblestone streets silent as Clara walked toward the bridge. The lanterns along the way flickered faintly, their flames dimmer now, as if they sensed the end. The stone arches came into view, the stream below murmuring like a sigh. The lantern hung from its post, its flame steady but softer, almost pleading. Clara stood before it, the hum a faint pulse in her chest, the warmth of the glass reaching for her like a hand. She closed her eyes, letting the valley's whisper fill her. A vision came. Lillian by the stream, her dress dry now, her face peaceful. "You've done enough," she said, her voice clear. Break it. "Let me go." The image faded, but the certainty stayed, rooting Clara to the spot. "Clara." Gideon's voice broke the silence. He stood at the bridge's edge, his coat loose, his gray eyes raw with something like fear. "You don't have to do this alone." She turned, her hand hovering near the lantern. "I'm not alone. She's with me. But this is my choice, Gideon. You broke yours. Now I break hers." He stepped closer, his voice low. "The valley takes something when you break a promise. I feel it part of me's gone with that lantern. If you do this, it'll take from you too. Your heart, your peace, I can't watch that happen." Clara's throat tightened, his care stirring something she wasn't ready to name. "I came here to start over, Gideon. Not to run from someone else's pain. Lillian deserves to be free. So do you." His eyes searched hers, then softened. "Then let me help. We started this together." They stood side by side, the lantern's glow casting their shadows long across the bridge. The hum was faint now, a melody of release. Clara's hand trembled as she reached for the lantern, Gideon steady beside hers. Together they lifted it from its hook, the glass warm, the flame flickering as if it knew. Clara closed her eyes, Lillian's face flashing, smiling free. "Now," she whispered. They let the lantern fall. It struck the stone with a soft crash, the glass shattering, the flame flaring bright before fading to nothing. The hum stopped, the air still, the valley quiet for the first time since Clara arrived. A weight lifted from her chest, but a piece of her felt lighter, too, something given, something lost. Gideon's hand found hers, his grip tight. "She's gone," he said, his voice rough. "I feel it." Clara nodded, her eyes on the broken glass. "So do I?" The stream below murmured, softer now, as if carrying Lillian's spirit away. That night no dream came. The lantern outside her window was dim, its flame a quiet ember. Clara lay awake, the valley's silence both a comfort and a void. She'd freed Lillian and maybe Gideon, but the valley had taken something from her, a piece of her heart, perhaps, or the certainty she'd carried from the city. She didn't regret it, but she felt its absence. As she drifted to sleep, the valley's quiet wrapped around her, a gentle end to the story she'd been pulled into. Elderglow was still, and so was she. Not all spirits seek to frighten. Some just wish to be remembered. If their tale lingered with you, let it rest with your breath. Sleep well tonight. And if you hear a whisper in your dreams, maybe it's just the end of the story.